Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in just a moment. It would be great in the meantime if you would please enter your name, your title, and if you belong to a school district, your district, and something you're looking forward to this summer. Great. I see some people can't wait to not work in the summer, to spend the day at the pool, forward to more time outside, summer vacation with a cruise to Alaska. Oh my gosh, that sounds so wonderful. For those of you who are just entering, we ask that you put your name, your title, and your district into the chat, and something that you're looking forward to this summer. More time with family at the beach, that sounds wonderful. Spending time at the beach, spending time with my family. Free 6-week summer program for area high school students. Great. Slower pace of work. Yes, I look forward to that as well. Relaxing in my rocking chair with a great book. Ooh, that sounds so good. All right, well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our combined webinar. Thank you, Career Ladders, for creating all of this opportunity for us. It's great to have partnerships with the Career Ladders Project with Ed Trust West, and I am Esther Suleiman from the Link Learning Alliance. We also have, next slide, please. We have Cecin Peraliot, I hope I pronounced that correctly, from the Ed Trust West, and Kylie Campbell from Career Ladders Project, who will be speaking with you shortly. Next, please. So the agenda for today is we're going to go over the GSPP key components very quickly. Then we're going to talk about the scheduling dual enrollment tool overview, and jumpstarting California towards universal dual enrollment. And one of the biggest themes throughout today is going to be integration, the idea of how do we integrate all the things that we say are important. Next slide, please. So we talk about, next slide, please. We talk about the importance of integration in the linked learning approach. Integration of the program of study, integrating work-based learning, integrating student support. Now, according to CDE, there are 5 key components to building a high-quality pathway. I just mentioned the first 3, integrating the program of study, work-based learning, integrating student support. Then there's also regional ecosystem, integrating together with all the people in your system, your community support, your industry partners, whoever else, your places of employment for your students or internships. And then the 5th one is creating coherence, really allowing coherence for everyone involved to understand. So when you're integrating, everybody understands what's being integrated and how and why, and then sustainability. So integrated program of study. Next slide, please. Students will greatly benefit from integrating subject matters around what we want them to know and be able to do. The more we can make sense of what students are learning and why they are learning it, and the relevance of that learning, this reinforces learning in all classrooms and gives them opportunities to practice that learning in all classrooms. Secondly, integrating work-based learning into that program of study so that when you're doing PBLs, you're doing projects, you're bringing in also the integration of partners who can help you create those projects to make them meaningful and relevant, partners who can give you feedback on it, partners who can adjudicate those projects, who can work with you on curriculum and build it out, who can provide students with a whole continuum of experiences in the work world. Another way we're talking about integration is student support integration, making sure that we support our students. And what better way of doing that than in a cohort model where students have opportunities to build relationships with specific groups of teachers and other students, where they can create those BBLs, where they can create trust, where they can have support provided from those specific teachers, and they can work together to create engaging and a supportive environment. And then, of course, there's integration with our community colleges, providing the college experience and providing course opportunities for students to take. So the focus for today from Career Ladders Project is around that scheduling. It is an incredibly important, arduous process. Next slide, please. And it is to create a master schedule. It requires both mathematical solutions and I would suggest artistic solutions. And the master schedule really is the heart and soul of the school. You can walk into a school and when you look at that master schedule, you can see what that school values. And I would suggest that it's really important to take the time to create a strong master schedule. You not only have to consider what you're offering, but in what way you're offering it, and all the different singletons and other considerations that you need to make. If you're going to bring community college into it, right, to think about how are we doing this and not just to offer students just a plethora of choices, right? We're the adults, we're the educated ones, we're the ones who can say, let's make structured choices, informed choices for students, not just give them anything. Build it, tie it to a pathway theme, align it to certifications and degrees granting programs. Make sure that the integration is cohorted program of study, providing the strong culture we talked about, right? You want to create that culture among those specific students, among those specific teachers. So if you have that cohort over 4 years, think about all the incredible support they will have. But all of that has to be done in building that master schedule. And again, for me, when I was a principal, cohorting was absolutely a non-negotiable. Another non-negotiable was providing professional development time for teachers within the school day. As a pilot school, we had the autonomy in Los Angeles Unified School District to do that. And I know some of you don't, but finding creative ways to provide that for teachers. And then figuring out where can you put those college classes, how can you fit them into that schedule? And we're very grateful to Career Ladders Project. They're going to go into details and they have a scheduling program and opportunity to assist you with how to do that because those are very challenging problems and ones that we want to make sure that you can address as you're building out your master schedule. But again, when you build those master schedules or when you help your leadership in your schools to create them, really think about two things, that structured choice. What choices do we want to give students? What makes sense? What goes along with the pathway? And then also, what do you prioritize? What are your non-negotiables? Okay, I can give away this, but absolutely must keep this sacred. This cannot go. So, and with that, next slide, please. I'd like to turn it over to Kylie, who's going to talk about their dual enrollment scheduling tool.
Thank you, Esther, and hello, everyone. Kylie Campbell here from Career Ladders Project. I can relate to Esther and echo how important master scheduling is and how much more complex that gets when we add in dual enrollment classes. And so coming to you as a former K-12 teacher and principal who had to make a master schedule from the K-12 side, and then jumping into the community college and making our dual enrollment schedules on high school campuses, online, and on college campuses. I'm really excited to share just what experience, my own experience, and what working with others in both the high school and the college has come to be the dual enrollment scheduling tool. So let's take a look at the challenge and why the need for the tool. Many of you are here because you are living this challenge every day and you have a master schedule or dual enrollment classes to schedule that you need to deliver. And so when we're looking at scheduling dual enrollment courses, the complexity in that is that we're scheduling college courses during a high school day and trying to meet the time requirements of two different governing agencies. And while doing that, there has to be a level of trust and collaboration between the high school and the college. And so just to stop on that real quick, the time requirements are drastically different, the way that we measure the time, the way that we report the time, and the way that we're funded for the time. And yet dual enrollment serves the same students. There are students from the high school and the college. So why is this important? Because we're looking to serve those students and we're looking to create these equitable opportunities during our school day that give our students the best chance at accessing the opportunities and succeeding as they take those courses. So some background, if you're here from the high school side, you're probably well aware of this, but I'm going to share background for both the high school and the college, just to level set for everyone in the webinar. From the high school side, we measure a minimum day requirement in terms of a number of minimum instructional minutes that must be met by a student in order for a high school to claim ADA for the student. And so ADA stands for the average daily attendance, and it is based off the minimum instructional minutes that a student attends over an average number of days. The next slide breaks this down a little more. So while this chart is pulled from the Time and Accounting website through the California Department of Education and contains a lot of other rows, I wanted to just pull the ones that are most common when we're discussing dual enrollment. And that would be our grades 9 through 12, and then our early college and middle college high schools. So looking at grades 9 through 12, comprehensive high schools, the minimum school day is 240 instructional minutes. And when you look at an early college or middle college high school, that minimum instructional minute reduces to 180 minutes. There is a difference of a student who is actively enrolled in dual enrollment at an early or middle college and those who are not currently enrolled in a dual enrollment class. So within a term, if a student is enrolled in dual enrollment at an early college high school or a middle college high school, the minimum instructional day they need for full ADA is 180 minutes. But if that student is not in a dual enrollment class, then their minimum instructional day is 240 minutes. So the important thing to also note here is that last fall, the California Department of Education altered the time and accounting FAQs and did presentations to include programs within the early college and middle college high school minimum day requirements. And so the 180 minutes of minimum instructional time, according to the CDE in time and accounting, now applies to early college high schools, middle college high schools, and early college or middle college programs. So I want to take a deeper look at the 240 minutes, and I am going to focus on 240 minutes for the presentation, but applying the same math and what I'm sharing to the 180 minutes can easily translate for our early and middle college schools and programs. But let's take a look at a very common bell schedule for a high school that has a 6-period day. I know some high schools have 7, some have 8. We have rotating blocks and all different kinds of schedules. But for the sake of the presentation, to take a look at just a typical bell schedule with 6 periods. When you look at just the minutes from each period, say you have a 58-minute period and 6 periods, that would be 348 instructional minutes. And on the next slide, time and accounting does allow that you can count a reasonable amount of minutes from your passing periods. But when counting passing periods as instructional minutes, those minutes have a lot of specific requirements. One of those is that the passing period must be from instructional time to instructional time. And we'll get more into that in a little bit. It also is that on Before and after school, you do not count a passing period going to their first class or leaving their last class. And on either side of their lunch period, you can only count one of those passing periods, but not both. And so this is where you'll commonly see that the start time does not contain a passing period, and before or after lunch does not contain a passing period in a bell schedule. So when we add the passing periods in, oh, sorry, Jerry, one quick thought. We get to 373 minutes. So I just want to keep that in our mind as we start looking at what it looks like to build in dual enrollment. Now the next slide. So from the time and accounting from the CDE, you can offer dual enrollment during the school day. You can also offer dual enrollment through independent study. And the ed codes that are followed both by the community college and by our LEAs for ADA computation. And it is important that when inputting dual enrollment into the school day, you are still using the minimum instructional time requirements for your ADA computation. So what does that look like? Let's take our next slide. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. For those of you from the high school side, I want to share a little bit on the apportionment, and most of our, if not all of our CCAP agreements and dual enrollment agreements should include a line that state that the dual enrollment instructional time will not be funded by two different entities or by any other means. And what this means is that the community college is receiving apportionment for the enrollments in a dual enrollment course. Because it is a college course, because it is scheduled on the college schedule, the students are enrolled through the college is claiming the apportionment for the enrollments in that section. This means that a dual enrollment class should not also be included in the minimum instructional time that is claimed for ADA for the high school district. Because LEAs have a minimum instructional time of 240 minutes, with additional minutes outside of that that can be used as non-instructional time and given towards dual enrollment. This allows the districts to still receive their full funding for their ADA, and the college to also receive their apportionment for the dual enrollment class. But again, this is tricky and why we built the tool, which we're getting to. Just to show a side-by-side on the differences for funding to the K-12 versus the community college. Again, the K-12 is based off an average daily attendance and meeting the minimum instructional minutes across those days for each student. Whereas at the community college, the funding is based off of enrollment or not. And so census enrollments, students enrolled at our census date, are part of the FTE that we claim to the state to receive funding at a community college. If a student is not enrolled at census, there is no funding received for the enrollment. So there's no, as there is with the 240 minutes and additional time outside of that, there's no additional funding provided if a student enrolls but drops before census for the community college course. At the community college level, we also schedule things quite differently. We schedule by contact hours instead of by minutes. And so one contact hour is 50 minutes, and we cannot schedule a contact hour that is less than 50 minutes. So if there is a high school period that is 47, 48, 49 minutes, that does not meet the minimum required of 50 minutes. But when we do have 50 minutes or more, we can schedule at least one contact hour. And this is how we compute our classes. So when you hear of a 54-hour class or 54 contact hours, that would be at least 54 meetings of 50 minutes. And the scheduling tool actually does these calculations for you. So one of the biggest challenges for the high school is we have a bell schedule that ends, all the times end in 1s, 2s, 3s, right? And not on 5s and 0s like the college. So the scheduling tool converts those times to end in 0s and 5s, and also ensures that you have at least 50 minutes. And if you have more than 50 minutes, it calculates how many contact hours that is for the college course. So this is the computation table, next slide, that is built into the scheduling tool. And let me just tell you that sitting there and scheduling and trying to figure out how to round the times of the high school to ends in zeros and fives, and looking at the minutes and computing that to contact hours and adding that up, that took so much time for every single dual enrollment class that we were scheduling. And so the beauty of the scheduling tool is that this computation table is built in. So to reiterate, it will convert your master schedule times from the high school to end in zeros and fives. It will take the minutes, convert those to contact hours, and then add up the contact hours to see if it meets the requirement for the community college course. So this entire computation table and what you are having to do manually and look at this table all the time is built into the tool. So what the tool does is, as you take your bell schedule, which you will be able to put a customized bell schedule into the tool, even if you have block periods, if you have rotating blocks, you'll be able to build that into the tool day by day for your week. But as we start taking dual enrollment and taking those minutes out of your instructional minutes, we want to make sure that you're still maintaining the 240 minimum or the 180 minimum based on your type of program and school. So here's an example of the same 6-period day where I took the 5th and 6th period and I converted those into closed CCAP dual enrollment classes in which the college would claim FTE for apportionment, and left periods 1 through 4 for the high school for their minimum instructional minutes. When I did this in this example, it left the high school instructional minutes at 252 minutes, which is still above the 240 minimum. So this is what the tool will do for you as you select the dual enrollment periods. It will tell you what the high school periods and instructional time adds up to, so you can see if you're at 240 or above. I think there's another example. The next example here is, well, what if those dual enrollment periods are not back to back? So the moment you start shuffling your dual enrollment periods throughout the day, one thing you're at risk of losing instructional time actually has to do with those passing periods. As a reminder, a passing period can count from instructional time to instructional time, but in the example shown here on the screen, if period 1 is high school instructional time, but period 2 is a dual enrollment class, then you would not be able to count the minutes in the passing period between period 1 and 2 or 2 and 3. So removing those 10 minutes actually puts us at a 242 minutes if we had a period 2 and 5 dual enrollment class. Now, this is an example schedule, and so your schedule could very well add up and you're at 238 or 239. So this is where it would be really important to look at the timing of your bell schedule and make decisions at a district level if you're going to add a period or a minute here or there, or a couple of minutes here and there, to ensure you know you have your base periods for your minimum instructional time and which periods it's safe for you to offer as dual enrollment without losing your full ADA and your minimum instructional minutes. The next slide does show, I know that a lot of our partnerships, especially when we're looking at our early and middle college programs in high schools, which yes, you can lower to 180 minutes during the day. But you also, if you have students on pathways and students are getting towards the end of that goal in high school, perhaps to earn a certificate or earn a degree, I have seen where we have high school students enrolling in 3 or 4 dual enrollment classes. If your CCAP partnership does allow up to the 15 units, this is an example of how you can do that, and students can accomplish these dual enrollment classes along with their high school classes, adding before and after school, and still maintaining the 240 instructional minutes. What I like to share as just one more thing, Jerry, on the last one, just a rule of thumb, but this certainly does not apply to every master schedule. is that when you schedule one dual enrollment class during the day, you're very likely not at risk for going into your 240 instructional minutes. It's when your students start enrolling in that second dual enrollment class during the same semester that you really need to make sure you're looking at your minutes and you're not going below your 240 minutes outside of the dual enrollment schedule. If you are, again, those little adjustments to your periods by a minute or two can make all the difference in maintaining your instructional minutes at the high school. And the next slide, so all of this has led to the development of a free tool. This Career Ladders Project presents the Dual Enrollment Scheduling Tool, which we will share the link for you to request your free copy at the end of the webinar. But the tool, not the school, is built for both high schools and colleges and has two parts. Again, it's free. Once you request your copy, you will get a unique copy of the tool that I will email to you. It's a Google document, so you can make as many copies of it as you want. You can share it. You can alter it if you want to. And if things ever go poorly and you altered something you didn't mean to, you can always contact me and we can look at adjusting it or fixing it back, or I can give you a new copy. But the two parts of the tool, which I will show you both parts, the first part was really built with the instructional minutes in mind and the high school master schedule. So in the first part of the tool, you put in your bell schedule. You do need to select, is this instructional time or non-instructional time within your bell schedule? And so you'd be selecting your dual enrollment periods as your non-instructional minutes that you're not claiming for ADA, and then all of the periods that you would be claiming for instructional minutes for ADA. And it will add up, including your passing periods, how many instructional minutes you have every day of the week. And you can customize every day because you might have a late start or an early out one of those days, or again, you might have a rotating block schedule. You can even use the tool to schedule if you have weekend classes or evening classes. The second part of the tool is where we start getting into taking that master schedule and converting that into a community college dual enrollment course schedule. So the second part will pull from the first part. And so you'll select the period that you're going to offer the dual enrollment class, input the start and end dates, and it will calculate what the start and end time of the class will be and how many contact hours you have for the college course. So let's take a look at what both of these parts look like. Here's part one. I just pulled out the Monday piece. This has Monday through Sunday built into the tool. But in the bright yellow is where you are going to input your bell schedule. And to the left of that, these are actually drop-down menus. So if you don't have a break or you have a period 8 or a period 3A, you can just kind of customize what these periods look like for you to the left, and then you input your start and end times. It will add up the instructional minutes in the passing period, but you will need to identify whether each of these are instructional, non-instructional, or dual enrollment. And we are going to be sharing the link for the scheduling tool at the end of the webinar, so all of you can request it. But you'll see at the bottom here, it's going to add up, here's your instructional minutes, here's your passing period that count as instructional minutes, and here's your total. And as you start adjusting the dual enrollment, that's where you'll see, can we do 1? Can we do 2? Maybe you can have back-to-back periods of dual enrollment, but the moment you split them apart, we start creeping on that 240 minutes. But this is going to help you identify and I think really be meaningful to your district and to your leadership at your district to show, as we integrate dual enrollment, here's how we're protecting our minimum instructional time. The next slide should be part 2. Oh, no, so here's a second, just the same example, but I added in another dual enrollment class and said, if I offer period 1 and 2 dual enrollment, I'm safe. I have 246 minutes. So again, you'll get to play with this and customize your schedule. Okay, let's go to the next one. I did too many examples of that. Here's part two. And part two is it's a full sheet, because what it does is it goes day by day, all of the weeks of the term. Why does it do that? Because all of our high school schedules are crazy. What we don't often think about from the college perspective is high schools have testing days, minimum days, rally days, non-student days, parent-teacher orientations, and the list goes on and on and on. And so what the tool allows you to do is take a look at your entire term and identify days that would be non-dual enrollment days. So on the bottom half of the screen on that right side column, you're going to see the non-dual enrollment day with a little checkbox. And after you put in your start date and end date of your term, all of the dates will populate and you'll be able to go through as a high school and identify which days are we not going to be offering our dual enrollment class. You can note, as I did here, the reason. Could be a holiday, could be a pep rally, could be any number of things, but it is very important that as you're scheduling, you're noting these non-dual enrollment days, because the college cannot count a contact hour to protect their funding and apportionment on their side of things if they can't offer the dual enrollment class because of some sort of alteration to your schedule for the day. When we're talking about college faculty coming to high school sites, it's also just from that personal lens of we don't want a college faculty showing up to your site on a date when their schedule has changed or their class is not being offered. So I have found that day by day, checking off where you will not be offering those class, one, it really helps make sure we have an accurate calculation of contact hours. But two, it's great for the faculty to have. And this can actually be printed as a one-pager to hand to those college faculty so they know exactly what their schedule is. What we input into this tool is everything in the yellow. So I've talked about the bottom half of the screen, but to put your direction to the top, you get to fill in the term. It's very important that for the start date of the term, at least for the tool, you put a Monday, because you'll see on the bottom, it starts with a Monday. And so we want you to put Monday there, but you don't have to start your class on a Monday. It just needs that in order to fill the dates in properly for you. You will get to identify the actual course start date and the course end date, as well as the high school period. So for this example, I pulled in period 2. And when you see the high school start time, the high school end time, the dual enrollment minutes, the dual enrollment contact hours, everything that's in white, all of that is pre-populating from the previous tab. So you put your bell schedule in, and as I had promised, it's going to convert that to dual enrollment minutes, dual enrollment contact hours, and the start and end time that the college would need to put on the college schedule. The sheet will take all of this into consideration, and in comparison to the required number of contact hours, will let you know how many contact hours you have and whether or not you're within 5% of the requirement. If you have if you're missing more than 5% or you have more than 5% extra time, the font will turn red because you do need to be within 5% of the required contact hours. So I just said a lot to just reiterate this. You're selecting your non-dual enrollment days, you're picking the period, inputting the start and end date, and it's really going to do the rest for you. Select the course dates it's meeting, and what I love is I used to have to just hand write out the math, right? What if I do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday? What if I do Tuesday, Thursday, Friday? I'll throw in a Wednesday here and there, and adding this all up. And so with the check of a box, right, you're getting to include Monday or not include Monday, adjust your start date by 2 days or adjust your end date by 2 days, and it will automatically update those calculations for you. So as I shared at the end of the webinar, you'll get your link to request this, but I am very excited to hand things off to my colleague and friend, Sessin Perilliot from EdTrust West.
Thank you so much, Kylie. And thank you so much for detailing how important and impactful this tool is going to be. Really, from day one to really impact and empower all of our practitioners and our educators to really help our students along this journey. I kind of just want to continue this conversation that's been going on, starting with how Esther kind of really laid some foundational work in terms of why we need intentional pathways and why that's so important. And then Kylie detailing this amazing new tool and how that's going to actually help us to reach that goal of empowering and impacting our students in that way. So where I want to kind of jump in is talk a little bit first and foremost about where EdTrust has been in the dual enrollment space, and then how we kind of fit into that math. So a lot of you may know that EdTrust West actually it gets a lot of its recognition in terms of dual enrollment work from what started in 2017 with the Jumpstart report. And that report was provided to really dive into what dual enrollment and pathways work looks like in California and why it's so imperative for to have equitable access for all of our students. We know it's a life-changing opportunity, and we know that particularly for our students who are more marginalized, who may have lesser opportunities to succeed in higher education, dual enrollment is a key strategy for allowing them to do that. But one of the things that came out of the Jumpstart report was that we created a suite of materials that actually also supports these efforts, all of which can be found at jumpstartca.org. So I'll kind of dive into kind of the additional materials at this point that have been created out of the Jumpstart report. This is a brief timeline as well in terms of some of the activities that I mentioned that came out of the Jumpstart report. So we also had a mapping tool that came in 2021 where you can look at district by district, community college, district by district across our state and see what the equity levels are for Latinx students, Black students, and Native students, and what number of students need to be added to that district to bring them to parity. Then we continue to build on that by updating both those materials and where we are in 2025. I know all of you are familiar with how much change has really happened in our state and how much promise has been offered from our state leaders in terms of supporting dual enrollment. Everything from Vision 2030 to the governor's roadmap has brought us to this key place where our state leaders are committing to building out dual enrollment, making that access more equitable for all of our students. So as we're at this juncture of opening dual enrollment to more and more students, it's more and more key to have the structures in place. And that's why this tool is so key and important at this crucial time. So that we can ensure that all of our students that are going through this process of being empowered through dual enrollment have the right resources and have the right schedules and the right resources to succeed really. So I'll go to into a little bit more detail with some details on some of the more recent tools next. So just this year, we actually released a equitable dual enrollment brief, and that came out of the context that I just shared. But it essentially talks about recommended areas of improvement to bring more equity to dual enrollment in California. I've surmised them here, but is especially in terms of the importance of the scheduling tool at this point in time. Um, when we're talking about disparities in access and participation and inconsistent granting of dual credit for many of our students, this is a tool that can actually help that specifically by being able to track and really empower. We know there are so many of y'all who are working on the high school campuses or on the community college campuses and helping these students. Although your work is very, very dedicated. Oftentimes you don't have a lot of support, and maybe one or two of y'all or a small team of y'all that are doing this. So having more and more resources to be able to empower you are our key aspect. One of the other things that we outlined were addressing instructor shortages and addressing the support, additional support that we need for our instructors and our institutions, everything from professional development to increasing staff and a number of other resources. And then also that piece around really just aligning our courses through credit. So we provided within this extensive brief all of these different materials, and then we also showed examples because a lot of times we can work in silos. We get so used to what we're experiencing here that and particularly for our state leaders that we can overlook that there are actually other places and scenarios within and outside of our state that are proposing solutions to some of these. So we talk a little bit about that as well. So next, I kind of just want to dive a little bit into, since I've given this background, I want to dive a little bit into how EdTrust West, again, factors in this amazing partnership that we have with Career Ladders Project and Linked Learning Alliance and many of our partners, but particularly with those two. So EdTrust West is primarily a policy advocacy organization. I personally serve as a policy analyst and I focus specifically on dual enrollment. And I want to bring your attention to this portion under mission that's listed here. It's about the fourth line down. So we talk about increasing political and public will to build an education system where students of color and multilingual learners, especially those in poverty, will thrive. So a lot of what we do in in our context and in our partnership is to take and see many of the examples and the work that's being done on the ground level. And we try to communicate that with our state leaders and with our legislators and with our fellow advocates, just to really elevate the voices of the folks who are on the ground, who are doing the work, of what they need and what our students need. And we try to prioritize Black, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander, and Native communities, especially those living in poverty through doing this work. So that brings me to the importance of advocacy and where that also factors in. So as I talked a little bit about how that advocacy portion is so needed, a lot of times we've noticed that there are often, I'm sure y'all have noticed as well, that sometimes there can be a disconnect, right, with what's going on in Sacramento in terms of updates, although we have really, really strong legislative champions who really love dual enrollment within our state. Oftentimes there's a little bit of a disconnect between the technical understanding of what's going on the ground and what's needed for our students, what's needed for our practitioners. And what we're trying to do is try to fill that gap, try to communicate that with them. So one of the things that we released to help with that as well, in addition to that dual enrollment brief this year, we released an advocacy toolkit. And that's something that can also be utilized by any of you or shared by any of you with anyone who just wants to know more about dual enrollment and particularly the legislative landscape of dual enrollment. But our intention was really to break down a lot of the concerns and the experiences that many of our partners have been having on the ground and try to communicate that in a way where our state leaders could really understand and digest that. And even folks who are maybe not as familiar with some of the history and some of the legislative and political landscape of dual enrollment to be able to kind of provide a guide to kind of walk through that. So within that advocacy toolkit, we have a few pieces of we have a few things here. So one is a background and legislative history of dual enrollment in recent years, as well as a dual enrollment FAQ. And then we have details for three dual enrollment bills. We actually put together a legislative package this year to really advocate for more equitable dual enrollment. One bill, the one that we personally sponsored with Assemblymember Bryant, AB 1122, is something that's turning into a 2-year bill. So you can also be on the lookout for that primarily next year. But that one is really just to provide the opportunity to have a dual enrollment program in every California high school. And that's really grounded in that legislative history that's been provided and what our state leaders have professed. So everything from Vision 2030 of having 12 units completed for all of our high school graduates, as well as the governor's roadmap and aligning that to career workforce and his goals. and the governor's office's goals in terms of why dual enrollment is so important in terms of meeting that gap. We see that the state is basically saying that dual enrollment is going to become more universal, and we're trying to make sure that it is more equitable as that is built out. And then within the details within those dual enrollment bills, we also have fact sheets on each bill. We have a support letter template in case you would like to share that with other folks, and we have a social media template. And the other two bills I'll just briefly mention. So there's AB 731 through Assemblymember Fong, and that one deals with a lot of the obstacles that many of y'all face, like for instance, the principal signature requirement that's required for all dual enrollment students to have the principal sign off on, which can obviously pose as an obstacle, particularly as we're building out dual enrollment for all of our students. If you're at a high school that has thousands of students, it's not feasible for one high school principal to sign all of those. And we've seen examples where oftentimes that duty is already assigned to a counselor. So just, tweaks in the system like that. And then the last piece is SB 438 that is by is intentionally trying to adjust. I know Kylie talked about those ADA hours in terms of 180 ADA hours for middle and early college students. There is a piece that for CCAP dual enrollment, I'll get a little bit more into CCAP dual enrollment. It's a little different, and that's something that the CDE is also working on, but we want to ensure that 180 hours for dual enrollment students is for all dual enrollment students. So I'll just continue a little bit more in terms of advocacy on the next slide here. So I also want to put a few little excerpts in here. So they're again diving into CCAP dual enrollment. For those again within that advocacy toolkit, the FAQ is one piece of it. So this is something that we really encourage you to share with fellow advocates or district leaders or your legislative representative or anyone who you feel needs to learn more about dual enrollment as you're building it out. And particularly some of these key questions. I know y'all probably get these questions all the time. Like what is CCAP? So we talk specifically about what CCAP is, why it benefits our student, what are the key components within CCAP that help more marginalized students, such as them not having to incur the cost of their books or their courses. It talks a lot about it also includes a piece about not replacing instructors on the high school level. So there are a lot of key protections that are in there that we really like to elevate, as well as within the FAQ, we talk about a lot of the proposed solutions for some of the problems that are faced in dual enrollment. And then again, we highlight that and ground that in the historic investments that our state leaders have provided, everything from those pieces that I mentioned before to the historic investments and pathways that have been provided through dual enrollment and GSPP grants the most recent years. And our ultimate goal is really to have our collective voices heard and our concerns addressed. So just rounding this out, I just wanted to re-highlight the fact that, again, beginning with what Esther shared in terms of the importance of having intentional pathways for our students to help them meet the career that they're intending to that they desire to meet, as well as aligning that and grounding that with the promises and the commitments that our state leaders have made in terms of building out dual enrollment and pathways work for the benefit of our state. And then talking about how Kylie really delved into the importance of this tool, of this scheduling tool. And I just want to re-highlight how important that is in this context, because dual enrollment is in a place where it's moving fast. There are a number of legislators who are jumping to try to become more advanced or seen as the legislative leader of dual enrollment right now. And that is great. And we're fully in support of that. And we are just trying to ensure that that is done in an equitable way. So when we have partners like Link Learning and Career Ladders who are supporting that work by developing tools and procedures that are going to be embraced and utilized by y'all, by our practitioners, by our administrators, for the benefit of our students, that in itself is going to ensure that while dual enrollment, as it will inevitably be built out larger and larger, that it's going to still be intentional, it's still going to be equitable, and it's going to provide all of our students, not just a limited few, but all of our students, the opportunity to really change lives through the course of utilizing these policies. And with that, I just want to open it up for Q&A. Feel free to insert any of your questions. And we actually have a document here in the chat if you could follow, and we could kind of just delve into some of the questions that y'all might pose.
There is a question from Jessica Ross regarding the ed code. It's not just early college and middle college, high school students who get the benefit of the 180 requirement, correct?
Yeah, so when that was updated, and Kylie, please feel free to chime in as well. But when that was updated, it was provided for most of our dual enrollment programs, but it did exclude. There was another bill at the same time that was specifically trying to change ADA hours for CCAP dual enrollment. That bill actually did not go through, and subsequently the CDE stated that they had intention of actually changing those ADA hours to match that 180 that wasn't met in that bill. However, we're still waiting for all of that to be solidified, but definitely feel free to chime in case I missed anything there, Kylie.
Yeah, so I just want to respond to that, and also about the ed code for 6146, because there is a difference here in there is ed code that exists for 11th and 12th graders who take the dual enrollment courses, having the ability to count 180 instructional minutes for them. But that ed code does also say that the high school would only receive 75% of the apportionment for the student. And so this is outside of that. So the 180 minutes being referenced for early and middle college programs is if you have a program established at your high school, or you are a standalone early or middle college high school, then actually if your student is in dual enrollment, then the minimum instructional minutes for full ADA is 180 minutes. And so with that, you would absolutely need to make sure that your program is clearly defined, or your school is clearly established with the CDE. There is currently not a process for registering as an early college or middle college program. However, you would want to be able to justify that. Esther had mentioned cohorts earlier. So in a cohort model, you have a cohort of students participating in a program on your site that results in college certificate or degree completion, aligning an early college program and middle college program definition with that of an early college high school and a middle college high school. So if you have a program or a high school that is early college or middle college, the 180 minutes would be for full apportionment. If not, the 180 minutes for 11th and 12th graders would be for 75% apportionment. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you, Kylie. And I added the link to the to request the scheduling tool in the chat for everyone. We'll be sending that as long with the video recording, so I'll put it in the chat.
Any other questions?
There's another question from Jessica Ross. So to clarify, there is a legislative push for 180 minutes to provide 100% ADA for special admin students, but for now, students do receive 75% ADA for special admin students for the amount of time.
Correct. So the current proposed legislation, the bill would apply the 180 minimum instructional minutes for CCAP program. So the student would need to be enrolled in a CCAP program for the 180 minutes to be their minimum instructional minute. Without the bill, 11th and 12th graders, if they are going to jump down to the 180 minutes, the high school would have to reduce their claimed apportionment to 75%. We really hope this bill goes through, but it would be CCAP program specifically for the bill. So not any dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment. You would need a CCAP program, and the student needs to be participating in the CCAP program. And this is already true for early and middle college high schools. I oversee a middle college here at Norco College. Not every student is enrolled in a college course every term. So students who are in a college course, they have 180 minimum. But the students who are not, for whatever reason, right, focusing on high school or sports or whatever reason, they are 240 minimum instructional minutes. And, oh yes, and Sesson put the link for the bill in there, SB 438. Thank you, Sesson. Any other questions? Okay, Sesson, would you like to close us out?
Yeah. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for listening. Definitely feel free, and I definitely encourage you to go into that Q&A document. Jerry actually put the link to register for the tool. Definitely register for the tool. Share that with all of your colleagues, and when you receive the request, free to share that with your colleagues as well. We just want to share our appreciation for all of you, all of the difficult and impactful work that you're doing on behalf of our students. And definitely want to continue to encourage you to continue to do that. And we're so happy to be in partnership with all of you. Thank you so much for attending our webinar today, and we look forward to seeing you in the field.